Alright, so you clicked on this video because you're most likely debating where you want to move to next. You're done dealing with a roommate that still doesn't know how to use the dishwasher, or maybe you just found a new tech job, even though it's probably remote, in which case you don't have to move, so you're weird. Or you just want me to crap on other cities so you feel better about where you live right now. Well, you came to the right place to hear my super unbiased opinion. Today, I'm going to analyze some cities so that you have a better understanding of which city suits you. For this video, we'll be focusing on East Coast cities. First up, New York City. Hipsters, haircuts, and dark clothing. I really didn't want to do this one first, but for some reason everyone loves New York even though I never got the appeal, and also I don't want people leaving this video, so I love New York. First off, what's up with people walking so damn fast? Yo, why do you walk so fast? I'm not, this is our formation. What do you mean? We don't walk next to each other so that we don't block other people. But I have to yell. Wow, Times Square is awesome. Hey, wait. If you live in New York, you will either adapt and walk fast or get run over by everyone else and die. It's really not that complicated, just stay out of the way and keep moving. But for tourists who visit for the first time, it can be scary and there's just a lot to take in. I remember being stared down and yelled at for stopping to take photos at the M&M store. I honestly believe that everyone in New York goes through a hazing process where they're required to purchase Heelys because they're so good at maneuvering around other people. But contrary to popular belief, not everyone in New York City is rude. Fast walking just means they're efficient. Most people are very helpful but just have very little patience. If you look lost, people will generally be willing to help. Just don't expect a long, meaningful conversation afterwards. And you'll experience people meeting of all personalities, just like in any other city. And you'll probably be surprised that a lot of these people don't live in the city, but rather places like New Jersey, Long Island, Westchester, and have fairly long commutes. And unsurprisingly, New York City has one of the highest costs of living, but it doesn't really stop people from leaving. Do you even like New York City? No, but where the hell else am I gonna go? Like any other city? Listen, I spent a lot of time in the West Coast, but I could never imagine living there. In New York, you could get a chance to work in the upper floor of a skyscraper, and you probably have a short commute if you live in the city. Who doesn't like nice views and fast elevators? And the city is pretty fun. There's amazing food, excellent views, iconic buildings in every turn, museums, park, culture. There's pretty much always something new to do or explore in New York City. But what movies and TV shows fail to portray is how many people there are, how many people are trying to sell you their mixtapes, and how many homeless people in urine there is. New York City is fun, full of opportunities, but unless you have an engineering job that gives you over $200,000 a year, most people will prefer living somewhere more west of the country. If you like eating, going to museums and parks, being comfortable surrounded by other people, and excitement in the lights and activity of a big city, New York City is the place for you. Next we have DC. C-SPAN, petty crime, and humidity. In DC you'll meet people with cool job titles and positions. In one day you can meet someone doing sales to someone else preserving documents for war trials for the United Nations. As a place of geopolitical power, this is the city that houses the most powerful people and orgs in the world. And if you're weird and into that kind of stuff, then yeah, DC is one of those few cities that will support your profession. If not, you'll probably run into these types of people. Hello, hey, what do you do? I just moved here from Philly with the dream of working for a nonprofit. I became a government contractor after getting rejected a bunch and realizing that nonprofits don't pay shit anyways. What do you do? I work for a nonprofit and take graduate classes at Georgetown. Most people who live in DC wish the city was bigger and more of an urban feel like New York City. This means things like pedestrian-friendly areas and parks in the middle of downtown. But the biggest improvement of DC compared to other cities is how easy it is to live car-free. Transportation is fairly accessible, people bike a lot, and you really get to experience the neighborhoods. If you care about fashion, DC is well dressed in that people are often in nice clothes, but it's not a stylish or trendy city as far as the average dresser goes. And what's up with people wearing suits here? There's certainly an expression of elitism in DC. I got a date later, what should I wear? Looks like it's my J. Crew suit, and Taylor shoes and backpack. There's also a myth that DC is incredibly dangerous. This was true in the 90s during the crack epidemic, but crime has been on a steady decrease for the past 20 years. Don't get me wrong, there's still an above average amount of crimes in DC, but it's almost all gang related and limited to a handful of low income neighborhoods that you probably wouldn't even live in. In fact, the gentrification of DC over the last decade has been massive. Every time I go back and visit, I almost never recognize some parts of the city. If you like access to transportation, being surrounded by smart workaholics, and not being boxed in by tall buildings and narrow alleys, and appreciate historic architecture, DC's a place for you. And finally, there's Boston. Sports, Wicked lobster rules, alcoholics. Similar to DC, one of the advantages of living in Boston is public transportation and the ability to bike or walk in most places. Boston is quite a clean city and has more green space than any other large cities. Even when you're in downtown, you won't be crowded by super tall buildings like in New York or Chicago. In terms of the nightlife scene though, I think it's a bit lacking compared to other places. The scene is driven by a lot of college students, but I mean, if you still want to fit into that scene even though you're in your 30s, then go for it. Most bars are pretty similar and it can be hard to find good drunk food at 2 a.m. Personally, I just think people in Boston are afraid of the dark. McDonald's is closed, where's the 24/7 McDonald's? And sports, yes. Sports in Boston are a big thing, not much else to add. In terms of the people, they can be pretty comparable to New York. Batshit crazy. I do prefer to use the term focus or motivated. Get shit done. Walk fast. Small talk won't be too common, but if you initiate that kind of thing, just don't. For example, if you're at a deli in Boston, this is how your conversation should go. Yeah, can I get the turkey with everything on it? Congratulations, you did it. Bostonians also value authenticity, and often that means being blunt. You can have popular opinions, as long as you own up to it. How do I like it in Boston so far? Yeah, I absolutely hate it. There's too much corruption, it's expensive, pizza crust here is bad. Don't hide your polite manners and lie about how you really feel. That's considered rude here. But once you live in Boston for a little bit, and you'll start to get it. And realize that the rudeness isn't them being rude, it's just a different frame of mind. But I think it's still rude. In terms of the weather there, winters are also mild compared to Siberia. Are you kidding me? Winters in Boston are dark, cold. It makes you question why you wanted to move there in the first place. Absolutely terrible when you get that half winter slush rather than that real cold and snow. And career-wise, Boston doesn't really have the hottest job market, but there's some markets that are pretty meaningful. Tech startups are around curing cancer or building robots instead of some random fintech app in the West Coast. You most likely won't be making the most, so save your money to pay for your expensive rent. If you have a good job that you can only get in Boston, or you like good transportation, sports, or real weather, then I'll think you'll like Boston. So that about wraps it up for these cities. If you're really considering moving to one of these places, please do more research. I would be so sad if someone decided to move to a place based on this video. I'd be proud to. And if you currently do live in New York City, DC, or Boston, help us out. I'd love to know more about what you like and dislike most about your city. And if you don't, what are your biggest needs when making a move? If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. I personally am trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of this year, so it would mean the world to me if you can help me out. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next part of the series where we will explore the Midwest, the land of cornfields and ranch.